Paula.
previously?
Yeah, with Paula or Courtney and how did we pay that? I know we did a transfer, right?
That's what they were all in economic development, but they got a, like golf course, they got a subsidy because economic development is bringing money in. So
That's
they
what it
were-
was.
Yeah. And then, once the department moved to building, like, no, we're just gonna move everything into.
That's right. Thanks,
Thanks for catching that.
And information on that water operator.
Yeah, Dave and I are gonna.
I'll look at it. I'd be curious on that, especially if we can switch that over to that study. So.
Me too.
Anything else on water? Okay. Thanks, David.
Thanks,
Chris.
Dave.
Wastewater after the.
Looks like you guys.
Yeah,
let
I'd
them
say
come in.
let's
Okay.
have Clearwater come up.
Chris, are you okay with wastewater?
Yeah, I'm work for the.
water.
Sorry, guys.
Okay,
Come on down, Sheridan.
Sheridan, Jace, you're up. I'm gonna change the meeting time to a different end date because or end time. It will be a date by the time I. But if it kicks you out, you're gonna have to hop back in. Just warning you guys.
I'm just staying out.
I always just stay out unless I'm presenting, which is never, so I don't ever log in.
Microphone.
How are you? They don't. I'm gonna put up on the screen, and then you guys tell me enter, and we'll flip through it. You printed them?
Yeah, but they're stapled backwards, so.
Oh,
they
that's
might be
alright.
wonky.
That's good. You need one, Jace?
Yeah, that would be. Thank you.
Tired. My brain is so
Nah, we're just getting started.
You just
All right.
want
You guys ready?
Ready?
to. Oh.
Hang on, I'm gonna get them shared. You could start. You could introduce yourselves and do that with me.
All right. Well, we'll thank you for letting us join you today. My name is Jace Perry. At Sheridan Sylvester. We've had the opportunity to help you with a few projects and excited to have this presentation in front of you today. It's a presentation that was shared at AIC recently and thought there would be some value to walk through with you. Please feel free to ask questions as we go, and it's kind of designed to build upon itself as we go through it. Apologies for the stapling on the right side. We had a conversation on the drive over if the next generation realized that books have bindings on the left since they don't use paper stuff quite as often. So, but thank you for letting us jump into this. So this presentation it does have a crux around utility rate setting and walks through all of the aspects that kind of go into that. A lot of the same principles are also used throughout other governmental funds, the revenue and expense generation, but this is primarily focused towards utilities, so water, wastewater, both. But as we jump into this presentation, there's some foundational information as you start. And you're in the middle of this right now, going through the budgetary process. But when you're looking at your utility system to understand where rates should be and how should set those going forward, there's three aspects that are kind of your base benchmarks to that, kind of the three-legged stool. You've got your revenues, your expenses, and then you've got your savings or net position, fund balance, whatever you may call that. Reserves can carry a lot of different names, and understanding what each of those are is important as you set rates going forward. Diving into revenues, there's opportunities within a utility system to define your revenue structure, your fee structure. There's some flexibility there. Some folks will go per EDU. Some folks will use based on usage, or maybe a combination of. There's also other fees that can be charged. So some of that is really understanding what your current rate structure is, also understanding your public, how your users use their water, wastewater, kind of breakouts between commercial and residential, understanding that each of those aspects is important to this. And then there's also other revenues that can come into the fund as well. You may have some interest earnings that come in, but understanding each aspect of that, not just how it comes in, but also why it comes in. Interest earnings, as an example, in current interest rate environments where there are earnings, 10 years ago there wasn't. So as you're setting rates and fees for your utility system, relying on your revenues to the point where you know those revenues are going to come in as much as you can. So if you rely too heavily on one-time fees, that can be detrimental, and realizing that those fees should be used for one-time purposes, recurring revenues to help cover your operating, so your monthly recurring usage revenues. So really understanding how that revenue comes in, why it comes in, helps you set those rates. On the savings, and there was a little bit of conversation about that earlier, really important to understand what funds you have, why you have those funds, and there's oftentimes it can get really confusing with savings. There's basically three elements when you're talking about the financial aspects of a city that are fairly unique. They interact with each other, but they're not directly the same. You have the cash flow, so funds coming in and out. You have your budget, which is your authorization to spend, and then you have your financial statements. And with savings, sometimes that can get confusing when you look at, I got cash in the bank versus what budget authority do I have to spend versus what does my financial statement say is my net position or fund balance. And they don't necessarily all agree to each other because they have different meanings and different purposes. So with your savings, it's really important to understand what money do I have and what am I going to do with it. And there's some conversation about facility plans, long-range plans. That is a really important tool to help you define what am I going to do with my money that I'm having down the road. And we'll talk a little bit more about different things. There's also with your savings, reserve funds, rainy day funds, and having policies in place to define how much do I need to have in there so that we don't find ourselves in a position where there's multiple down years or circumstances change that are unexpected and your cash flow is gone. So on your saving, understanding what you have, what is really available, why it's there, and what that's going to be used for. And if there's uncertainty around any of that, setting policies in place that will help define that, and long-term facility planning that defines what those funds can be used for. Next is, it'll be fun turning. I think I missed a page. Expenses. I knew it was there and I was trying to find it. Did I skip it? Okay, expenses, yeah. Expenses are fun as you're in the middle of going through the budget process. There's a couple of things on the expenses, understanding what they are as it relates to your current expenses. The nature of those. Are those recurring that are going to be coming year after year, or are they one-time expenses? And then as you understand your revenue, you can correlate one-time revenues with one-time expenses and ongoing revenues with ongoing expenses. They may not necessarily match exactly, but really understanding how those flow helps you set your rates that are appropriate for the expenses that you have. Also with your current expenses, and as you look forward, there's inflationary aspects of that. Just regular inflation for your operations. There's also situations as you look forward for repairs and maintenance, deferred maintenance, the cost of that, the cost of not doing that when it's on time. And then different from deferred maintenance is your regularly scheduled capital improvements, whether that's expansion, whether that's just replacement, timely needed replacement within the facility, what those costs are and when those costs are going to come on board, and being prepared to be able to facilitate those costs. And talking with inflation, there's a couple of other things too that's important as you look at the costs today and looking forward. One is the regulatory aspects of that. Sometimes this is something that you can see coming down the road. Sometimes you can't. But unfortunately, EPA has the ability to enforce or put in new regulations. And sometimes it's a good thing that will change the standard of service that you have to provide in those utility systems. And those are almost always unfunded mandates. So you've got to increase your service level, how you process that, and fund that. And so being aware of regulatory changes is important also in the rate setting process to know if you're going to have to make changes to your system, increase a process. Maybe it takes more time, you need more manpower, depending on what that change is. But it's important to be aware of that, because that cost the system will have to take on that burden. And then the let's see, I think that's everything in that one. So something I want to illustrate a little bit here is sometimes there's a discussion of doing things down the road, and this is largely around deferred maintenance and capital expenditures. And when that happens and you have inflation, the cost of a project, and here's just an example of 4% inflation over 10 years. So you may be able to squeeze the additional useful life out of a particular asset, 5 years, 10 years. We'll just use 10 years for an example. You do that and you don't have to pay any money. If you, at some point, you're going to have to replace that asset. So now it's that 15 million's cost $22 million to replace it. If you haven't done anything with your revenue, you're, instead of a $15 million hole, you're now in a $22 million hole. So your hole has gotten bigger. You still have to replace that asset. So being cognizant of that, if there are kind of going back to the deferred maintenance and the capital needs, being proactive in the foresight of the revenue need to associate with that, so that you don't essentially find yourself a bigger hole. And one challenge that we see a lot is some folks will be like, well, maybe we'll just borrow the money and then we can address that problem. Well, if your revenue stream is at a deficit, you now have a bigger deficit. You could borrow that money, but you still don't have the money to pay the debt service payments. So it doesn't solve the problem, and compounds that problem. So diving into debt service and some important aspects of how to take a look at that as it relates to your budget and your rate setting. The operations is a little bit pretty set forward. You got lots of years of history of operating the system. You know where those expenses are. Now you have debt service. So what does that mean as it relates to the market? And a little bit of this is going to be from the perspective of a lender, what they're going to look at when they're going to offer to lend you money to facilitate any borrowing that you may need. Couple of big things is the credit worthiness. So they're going to take a look at the utility. They'll look at the city, but primarily the utility. Is it worthy of us giving your money? Are you going to be able to pay us back? And there's lots of aspects of that credit worthiness, from management, oversight, policies and procedures, internal controls, but primarily your financial status as a utility. And that we use the word coverage, your financial strength. Are you going to have the ability to pay that debt service payment? So when we look at coverage, and coverage is essentially your cash flow each year that's available to make debt service payments. And why does that matter? They want to know that you're going to be able to make your debt service payments. Not only are you going to be able to make your debt service payments in a normal year, but are you going to be able to make a debt service payments if things go sideways, if something goes not according to plan? And so your coverage, generally the market has we call a 125 coverage. So 100% of your debt service plus 25% of cash available after you've paid your operating and maintenance expenses. So you get all your revenue, we talked about that, all your operating and maintenance expenses, and then you should have enough cash left over each year that's 125% of your bond payments. And that's the minimum. So the higher that number is, the more strength that you have as a utility when you go to borrow. And the more strength that you have, the better interest rates that you can command, and the better financial freedom that you have. Because if you barely have enough to make a debt service payment and you go through the budgetary process and there's a one-time need, all of a sudden your deferred maintenance may tend to grow because I don't have any money to pay for that, or push things off because we're so tight that we can barely make our debt service payment. The banks will look at that, underwriters will look at that, and that's what they're going to look at for their prime source of the strength of your utility. Rating agencies will also look at that when they go to rate your bonds, look at your coverage to see if you have the ability to make those payments and how much flexibility you have. A couple of other things. We talked about interest rates and kind of the resiliency of the utility, but also your capacity. So the larger coverage level you have, the more borrowing you could do. Now, rating agencies will also look at over leveraging, so they're not going to want you to over borrow. Depending on the size of it, your system, you don't want to borrow too much money, but more revenue you have, depending on what your need is, and where you have minimal debt, you have the ability to use that capacity for system upgrades and where is needed. And then this is a kind of the outline of that calculation that we talked about, taking all of your system revenues that come in. And a note about this too, it's interesting about system revenues, the Idaho Bond Bank Authority is a conduit debt issuer in Idaho. They're a great tool, and if you go through them, there's the opportunity to get the state's credit backing and get a AAA rating, which will reduce your interest rate. They don't allow you to use one-time revenues in their coverage calculation. So when you look at those types of revenues and analysis of your rate setting, if you're relying on a connection fee to cover your debt service payment, then you probably won't be able to go through the bond bank to issue the bond. So that revenue, the rate setting is important as to what types of rates you're using and how that revenue is coming in. And then you have your O&M expenses. We talked about all of those, your debt service, and then ultimately the ability to make that debt service payment. And then whatever's left, we have in here surplus. I think surplus might be a little bit misleading. Really, that's funds available for capital investment. And capital investment is your debt service is also a capital investment, but your capital investment is your recurring annual larger repairs and maintenance items, maybe upgrades and replacements on an annual basis, and then also an opportunity to save some funds for some bigger system investment as well that you may not have to borrow for. So there's kind of a balance of using debt and savings with your rate setting process if you have that set appropriately. And you guys talked about doing a rate study, and this is, I guess I should have said kind of leading into this, this is kind of a little bit of the high level nitty gritty, or not the nitty gritty, because this is the high level of that process. Going through, this is the high level, and then it's going to go in deeper into all of the, even within your system, specifically for a water system rate study, what are your capital investment needs on each of the systems, the types of rates that you could offer if you should do an adjustment or a change in your rate system. And it's also really good to work with staff on that too, because the billing folks get to deal with that. So complexity can be a challenge too. So more just a FYI on the rate setting. Simplicity, when possible, is beneficial both for users because they understand how they're getting billed, and also staff that is, not to speak for staff, but if it's the simpler it is, the easier it is to administer as well. So something to keep in mind on the rate side of things. Talking on the rating process as we go into the debt service or the debt issuance process, a little bit of insight. And so when you go and do a ratings and you go issue some bonds, and this is assuming going out to a market bond. If you're going through a DQ process, a DQ loan doesn't have a rating, so you wouldn't have to go through that rating process, but they go through their own credit analysis similar to what a bank would do. So a lot of these same principles apply. They're still going to look at your rates and look at your ability to pay back the loans. So even for a DEQ loan or a USDA loan, you'd still have that credit analysis. The rating agency is going to do something very similar to the underwriter or bank, and they're going to look at how you're operating the system. They're going to get your financial statements, and they're going to look at the history of your financial statements. A couple of things that are important in that process is they're also going to look at your policies and procedures that you have in place. So do you have a debt management policy, investment policy? Are you following those policies? And that shows to them that there's good governance involved and that you'll have the foresight to address challenges and situations that may come and the outline of how to address those. Also, when it comes to rate setting and a rating agency and the underwriters, they're going to look at your history and looking forward. So they're going to take your last 3 years. So if you have not increased your rates and plan to increase them in the future, they're going to discount that and try to weigh, are you really going to raise rates or not? And if you need to get the bond and you haven't shown a history of doing that, it's going to cause them some pause. Or do they really have the fortitude? Because they understand the political side of things as well. Nobody wants their rates raised, and anytime there are, there's going to be pushback. And so that is a challenge to it. So they're going to look at your history. Have you done it? Is there that ability to get that done? Or are you hoping to do that? Or, and a lot of times there'll be a rate study will set forth a plan. Maybe there's a series of rate increases over a period of time. Where are you in that process? We were going to raise rates 5 times over 5 years, minimal impact. We're in year 3. We did our rate increases. We got 2 more. That's going to be a positive because it shows you had the fortitude to follow through with that rate study. So it's a couple of things as it relates to rates and the rating. They'll look at liquidity. So having cash reserves is a positive thing because it shows that you have the ability, the cash in bank if you need to make a debt service payment and things go sideways. So those cash reserves are a positive thing. Let's see. And then we got some illustrations here. Wanted to walk.
Sorry.
There's a question.
Didn't
Go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt. I
No,
know you
no,
said,
no,
but
please. Sorry, I get
you're on a
going and
roll, so I
you're
didn't
talking.
want
So
to.
no, please ask away.
Back to your rate. I just have a question. You're talking about history in that. One of the biggest things I think you had said about is that rate plan. Earlier this year, I'd gone to one of the AIC and had Nampa and Boise, and I think one of the greatest things they had was that 10-year plan of this is why we're going to raise the interest rate or the rates and show what it's going to in that. So I'm glad to hear that. I think that's definitely, I'll speak for myself, needed to have that plan instead of just 4.9 every year, and what are we going towards? Is there any consideration that's taken into in all this history of, yes, you might raise your rates, but what are you spending this on? Or is it, actual capital improvement projects, or is it just study after study, kind of that realm of planning versus actual, action and implementing real capital improvement projects?
From the rating agency's perspective or the creditor's perspective, they largely, unless it's obvious that you're not spending money on your infrastructure, they're going to focus on the cash available for debt service.
Okay.
So they're not necessarily going to go back and, did you do a well versus, or hired somebody kind of a thing and how that money was spent. They will look at the project. So your water system plan that lays out, we need to expand and do X, Y, Z. They're going to look at that plan, and that will give them some insight as to, okay, why are you in the situation you're in? You have had a history of neglecting it, and it's got problems, and that's why you're doing it. That might give them some pause from a governance perspective. If it's expansion, because we've grown like crazy and we have twice as many residents as we did 10 years ago, they'll digest that as well and understand that that's a challenge. And usually it's not that it's a bunch of neglect, but some combination of facility upgrades and needs and expansion right now. And so they will digest that too.
Okay. Just curious, when you brought up about history and looking,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, what if you are raising your rates constantly, but it's just we haven't implemented anything yet, or
Yeah,
it's been
you're
a
building
long
up
time.
cash balances.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll look at that. If you had a huge surplus of cash, they'd ask what you're doing with it. And that would go back to your facility plan. Do you have earmarks for that, or are you just building up rainy day for no reason? And generally, you'd probably get the public asking too, why are we just adding all of this money up? But if you have either whatever it is, a water system plan or a master facility plan for other departments, you can outline and say, yeah, we've got 20 million in the bank, but that's because next year we're going to use that 20 million to build XYZ that we have to do, or in 5 years or whatever that time period is.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Okay. Yes. Thank you, Sheridan.
Yeah, there you go.
And so this is a little bit, we'll go off of the conversation you guys had about the rate study, but it's important to keep rates current and also aware of what the future holds. So when you're setting rates, not just looking at what today's O&M is, but also what the potential costs that are coming down the pipeline are. And we'll talk about how that relates to debt service specifically with some of these examples. But having a rate study, I'm glad that you guys were contemplating on the budget. Sounds like it's in there. Because it also is a very good tool for the public as well, because it allows them to understand as you're making these decisions why, and over time be able to make decisions looking forward. What we see oftentimes is the rates get changed at the last second, and that generally tends to be a large rate increase, and that doesn't go over so well. So if you have to do a 15, 20, 30, sometimes 50% increase, we've seen situations where people are looking at 100% increases, that's a hard pill to swallow. Why do we have to do a 100% increase? And largely the reason is because when rates were set before, they were looking at just that year and they were not looking. So that's really important. In that process, it's good to have a citizens committee involved. Let them be a part of that rate setting process, and then have them reviewed annually. Convene them annually, walk through that with your city staff as to what the rates are, why those rate increases need to be. And then those best practices are found within GFOA. Those rate setting best practices as well. So scenario A, and just to walk through, these are just numbers that aren't tied to any particular a budget or anything, but just city A or scenario A. In year one, looking at the current year, a very a strong financial situation. $6 million in revenue, $4 million in operating expenses. So $2 million of funds coming in. I'd say that you looked at that and they're in a situation where their rates are at a very strong spot. And some may even argue, do we need to be reducing rates? They maybe have too much revenue coming in. Well, in this scenario, this particular system needs a $35 million upgrade to their system. And the plan for that upgrade is going to happen between year 3 and year 4. So now they're starting to look for, okay, well, how are we going to pay for that? If they saved, they kept the rates the same and saved over 10 years, I think they'd have between 16 and 17 million. So they still couldn't do that. They'd have another 10 years in order before they could actually build it. So they're 20 plus years away from being able to do it. So they look at borrowing. The debt service to borrow is about $2 million in this situation. So year 4, they borrow the money. Year 3, do the project. Their first debt service payment is in year 4. Their financial situation went from being in a really good spot to they can't even pay that debt service payment, because now it's 1.9 or my eyes are going bad, 1.6 million, and their $2 million debt service payment isn't enough. So they would have to raise rates. And when I was mentioning looking backwards, if they went in year 3 to go issue a bond, whether it was the market, the bond bank authority, the rating agencies, they're going to look at those last 3 years and they're going to say, okay, you have a $2 million debt service payment. The last 3 years, could you have made that payment? And the answer is going to be no, because in year 2, they only had 1.8 million, year 3, 1.7 million. So they wouldn't be able to borrow the $2 million they needed to do that system improvement. So that's kind of the example of looking at everything today and everything's great and not looking forward, and then finding yourself in a really challenging financial position on the rate system or on the utility system. So a couple of other scenarios are the same scenario, but they changed it a little bit. They ran into this situation. What does it mean? So in order for them to get to their minimum debt service requirement, now they got to do a 15% rate increase in year 4. And then subsequently do 3% increases after that to stay up with it. So that scenario of not doing anything in year 1 created a one-time increase of 15%, which it could be a lot, could not be a lot, kind of depends. So what if
in year one, instead of waiting for 3 years, they had consistent increases. What does that look like? So the next scenario, if they had a 3% adjustment every year, that 15%, or so then in year four, they're closer to the $2 million. They have enough to make the debt service payment, not enough to get to their coverage threshold. So that coverage threshold would mean that they'd have to raise rates again. Instead of 15%, now it's down to 8%. And so it's a smaller increase. And then the last piece is if they increase, I'm sorry, I'm going really fast.
No, you're good, Jason. I'm with you.
Is if they just raise rates 5% every year. And that 5% every year gives them the coverage up to 1.29% in year four, so they can make their debt service payment, meet those requirements, and there's no larger increase that have to be approved and go through that process. So just a scenario, different ways to look at it, but really trying to emphasize the importance of looking forward and knowing where you have facility improvements that are on the horizon. You've gotten that report, that's coming. How do you implement that? How to pay for that in your rate setting now so that you can best prepare for it?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So we didn't raise our rates this year. We were asked to raise our rates again at our last council meeting.
Mhm.
We decided not to. Were you called to come in to brief us because we didn't raise our rates? I'm just wondering, is that?
I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I've been working with Clearwater. Well, I talk to Sheridan and Jace probably weekly.
Huh.
I sat at a presentation given by Cameron last Thursday
Yeah.
and thought it was really eye-opening, and I knew a
It
rate
seems like
study.
coincidental because it was amended the adjust or the thing. Yeah. There's reasons why we didn't do it. It's not just because because we've raised them 4.9% every year for how long, right? A while.
Yeah.
So, but
And this is not an uncommon conversation. We're involved with these across the state, with cities, with utility districts, and it's every year it's the same. And some folks are more astute to it or more prepared. Everybody's got a different perception. And to your point, it's not as simple as what we're presenting as far as the numbers. We realize that there's other factors that weigh on it, but we do think, and that's why we presented this at the AIC conference 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Is because we think it's really important for you to be able to understand that, where largely as council members, most aren't into the weeds into this every day. And so the more that you know and understand, the better informed decisions you can make.
Mhm.
So that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions on the scenarios and how those play out? All right.
I do want to say, as a staff member, the first thing when Cameron, Jason, Sheridan in the last little bit, like when we did get the rates weren't increased, it could be detrimental. And I have been in the city for quite a while, like you all know.
Mhm.
And then I watched a 15 and 10% rate increase, and the council at that time make those decisions. So when those things were said, for whatever the reasons were, as a staff member, I'm like, well, we need to do something. So I got on the phone with these guys who are our financial advisors and was like, what do you guys think we should do? And right away, they're like, you guys need to start implementing policies and you need to do this. Well, that takes you guys to be involved and to do that. And so that's where we're at today, is we need to educate and get policies drafted, as Jace has alluded to, and have them for things for us to follow in guidance. So.
I appreciate that, Tiffany, and I understand that. And I think Councilwoman Workla, without getting too far into the weeds about this, touched on why.
Yeah.
And so it isn't just a simple, no, it's also of how things are being used and spent. But one of my biggest thing too is having a plan that I've seen with other municipalities that say this is why we're increasing it to make that target. So completely understand, but I think a little more context too is somewhat.
I agree. Yeah. No.
And it is important to raising rates, having a reason why, and an explanation associated with it. Arbitrary rate increases, I don't think, are a positive thing for anybody. So it is important to have that reasoning why you're doing it, whether it is for simple O&M inflation or long-term capital improvements, deferred maintenance, whatever it is, having a good why you're doing that. this next slide talks a little bit about the compounding effect, and this is where it does get challenging for cities, because if you need to increase rates and you don't increase rates, the effect of that is felt over time. And this is just an illustration where you do no increase, and that difference between the increase in inflation and cost and your surplus shrinks, where your rates, if you have a percentage rate increase, that compounds. So if you don't do it this year, don't do it for 5 years, and then do 3%, you lose the 3% on those years that you missed. And so that gap shrinks. And so there is a compounding effect too of not increasing rates. All right.
Jace, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Like this slide was really when I sat with at AIC, this slide specifically, but the other cities, they picked on the engineering firms as well, talking about not only is it compounding now on us by not implementing the rate, but then you don't have the money to pay for the project that's also now gaining higher value as you move. And he'll probably talk more about it, but it was like the double-edged sword again, right? Like kick the project down the road, you can't afford it because we haven't done these rates, but then by the time we get to the project, what was 10 million now is 20 million, and we're only in a 3-year window, right? And so that to me was eye-opening as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that I guess to that point too, something that we've done with some municipalities recently, because DEQ has largely been the borrowing resource for the municipalities, for utilities for years. The demand is about, they're able to fund maybe 10% of the demand. So there's a lot of folks that are just waiting. Being prepared financially to go directly to market and borrow helps to combat that inflationary impact of the cost to do projects, which is increasing higher. The last few years is there's a larger inflationary increase on construction than just the typical O&M for other costs. So, and then one other thing too on that is that with, at least as it relates to USDA and some DEQ, there's also requirements that can increase the cost of a project. Some of the federal requirements, Davis-Bacon, BABA, going directly to market, you don't have those costs as well. So there's opportunities to reduce cost of a project. And those are things that when the time is right, we can come and walk through the analysis and give you information and data. So as you make a decision on how you want to borrow, we can help you make informed decisions and make good decisions there. So another piece of the funding process is the one-time fees. And within the utility rates, there's essentially two main tools there. Most utilities use a connection fee. Sometimes they'll have different names for it. And then there's also impact fees, which are less commonly used in utilities. But they're both one-time fees, gives you the opportunity to have growth pay for growth. With these tools, there's some pretty significant differences that are important to be aware of. There is legislative guidelines on how they're calculated. So with both of them, you have to follow those guidelines and have a study to go through the process to determine what the fee should be. The impact fee study includes the requirement of a capital improvement plan, and then that capital improvement plan will define what you can pay for with the impact fees, and then that backs you into how you calculate what your impact fee would be. It is important to note with the impact fees, you can only pay for portions of the project that are caused by growth. So if your system is behind or you're enhancing service in any way, impact fees can't pay for that. Whereas connection fees, although they do have a requirement on how they're calculated, which is essentially the replacement value of your system, and it also incorporates any debt that you have on the system to determine what that fee would be, can be used for more than just growth. You can use your connection fees for other aspects within the system as long as it's within the utility system. how long you can use to spend them. Within a wastewater system, you have 20 years to spend an impact fee. Otherwise, then it has to be reversed. There isn't a limit on connection fees. So, and then the implementation process with impact fees is a little bit longer. There's a little bit more involved going through the public hearing process. You have to do the CIP and impact fee study. You have an advisory committee that meets, and then there's the public hearings to go through and implement that. The council does have the ability to adopt a fee that may be less than what the study says. That's at the discretion of council. You don't have to adopt that fee, which is a little bit similar to connection fee as well. You go through the study process, and then you would adopt that through council and adopt the fee that you thought was appropriate.
Jay's question, just for clarification on that connection.
Mhm.
It's talking about it based on the present value to replace. That's basically just looking into the system, right? That's nothing, it's not growth related.
As far as the calculation of what the fee would be, yeah, so it takes the system calculation as a whole and the replacement value of the whole system. It's kind of from the perspective of a new buy-in. So as a new customer, I've got this $50 million system, and I'm going to buy in my share to that $50 million that's already been invested in the system. It's kind of the.
And I'm just bringing that up because I know there's been court cases here in Idaho where that connection fee has been challenged a few times.
Yep. Yep.
Hayden, where it was thought,
yep,
we'll just charge this fee, and it was very much, no, you have to have a study that actually shows the value.
Exactly. There's code that defines how to calculate it, and so you do need to have that study.
It's not necessarily based on future growth. It's just what the present value is
of the system. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Great question. All right. So just kind of to overview what we've gone through, a quick kind of really understanding your revenue streams, where those revenues come from, how they're calculated, what your costs are. And then I was going to add too, I didn't mention earlier, on the cost side, and you guys talked a little bit about it, it is really important to understand the costs for the utility system, that they are solely for that utility system. We see sometimes where there will be either commingled funds or cost allocation or funds transferring between enterprise funds and general funds, and they really do need to be independent, and the utility needs to stand on its own. So making sure that you understand that all the costs that the utility system are in there belong to that, so you don't inadvertently have one utility subsidizing another, which we do see that sometimes, and creates rates that are out of whack because maybe the sewer system has really high rates, the water system has low rates, and that's only because the sewer system's paying more expenses than it's supposed to. So understanding the expenses that are there, making sure that they're appropriate. And then this, we just wanted to give you a quick update as part of the presentation at AIC. We did help did a recent bonding issue with the city of Middleton. Did a loan for their sewer system upgrades, and city of Buell had some refinancings. And just to show what this is, and more for the process, we went through a competitive bond sale process, which is essentially like an auction. Put all of the information into an offering document, send it out to the public, and then on a date, all of the underwriters bid on that bond. And we had
A lot.
15 bids. And this is really interesting. So on this slide here, so 4.14% was the interest rate, and that includes the cost. So it's a true interest cost. So all of the fees associated with the borrowing and the interest that they're going to have to pay over time was 4.14%. The market, so there's a market interest rate. It's called the Municipal Market Data, MMD curve, that every day gets adjusted and kind of you can use to benchmark how did we do. So that would kind of be the average of what the market got. So on that day it was 4.46. And so this competitive bond sale process was able to get 32 basis points underneath the market, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you calculate that over the life of this bond, it's $4 million in interest savings. So it's pretty significant, and that's a lot because there's not a lot of Idaho debt out there. So when Idaho debt comes, the market likes to see that so they can diversify their portfolios. It's good. The Bond Bank Authority has a really good AAA rating. You got the state sales tax pledge behind it. And the systems, the Middleton system and the Buell systems had their rate structures in place to be able to meet those needs. And so it was able to get strong ratings. But they were able to get those, Middleton's able to now get that project going versus waiting for DEQ down the road. So just to give you a little insight of that process and how that goes. Sorry, that was a lot of information. I probably talked too fast. Any questions? Well, thank you. And if any come up, please feel free to reach out. As Tiff mentioned, we're your municipal advisors, so we're here to support you, be a resource for you as you move forward on things. And if there are projects that we can help with, we're happy to be here and help through that process.
Jason, we had a couple of questions. So you, not only just the rate study, I think we also wanted a parks
Well, there was
study,
facilities.
and a facility study that you gave the last time, but we'll have to come back at that.
Do you all do Parks Master Facilities Plan?
Yeah, so what we do, we'd probably partner with an architect or an engineering firm, but we can put that team together to do a parks master plan. It'd be very similar process to a master facilities plan, just a different partner that had a little different expertise on the parks. But yeah, we can absolutely.
And not to put you on the spot, best guess of a cost of that.
Parks, I don't know that I could give you a number on that one. I think we had a number on the master
We
facility
did.
plan.
Yeah.
Would it be two plans, or would you put the parks in with the master facility plan?
Probably be 2 plans.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So parks can be a part of the master facility plan, but they are generally different, kind of like your water plan, where it's the engineers generally drive the water and wastewater plans because they're different. Where your master facility plan is going to incorporate more city hall, police, fire, those types of facilities. So you can incorporate them and do a master facility / park plan, or include the parks in your master facility plan. But a lot of times they're separate because of the types of.
Okay. Any other questions? Sheridan, Jay, thanks for making it all the way down here. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
The effort and the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will not be on Zoom next week.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. It's a holiday.
That's true, it is.
Well, it's not yet a holiday, but I'm going to treat it up.
Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank
both.
you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, happy 4th of
Yeah.
July.
All right, Chris. Come on
No.
down.
So, follow up, if it's allowed, on the open
Yeah.
position. So do you remember when we went through the lieutenant hiring process and we did the freeze on all hiring? Recall that?
I think that was a little.
It was before your
For them,
It was
yeah.
before your time, so
Okay.
we did a hiring freeze for a moment tied to the police department, but all city positions were put on hold. We had already been in the process of bringing an employee on, and that was halted about a year and a half ago. That's the position.
For the water
And
guy.
I got that directly from Daniel Mercado. We went, oh, here it is. So it's been empty a year and a half. And the question stands.
I'm pretty sure it was just a freeze for the police department. It wasn't across the board.
I
I
think there
mentioned
was-
that, but that was not implemented.
No, and I wasn't.
I think there was.
Well, we know how that night went, and we're not going to rehash it. But
Yeah.
once he said it, I
Big
was like, oh,
confusing
yeah, that
topic.
makes sense.
That's
Because
what
Okay.
we all took the impression as citywide, and then
Yeah.
it came back and got clarified. But
But the initial
Probably,
stop,
yeah.
we were like, oh, we're stopping.
Okay.
Stopped.
Should that have covered the rec or parks? Because I know that I brought that up question too.
Yeah, they probably. Well, in the meantime, like we had, like Miguel said, there was a retiree in the parks, and then we just actually had a transition of an employee out of parks.
Yeah, we had the retirement, and then I know we had the one, but I think there was another.
The park specialist, we lost an employee, and it hasn't been replaced yet. Like, would be like early this spring, we lost one. So.
And then airport no longer needed that discussion.
So I will tell you, I can get you numbers for the projected revenue for the hangars, but I spoke with our current airport manager and he is not willing to share his financial documents for revenue for fuel. So I won't be able to provide you that number.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke to him while you guys were doing this. So
Stacy, you ready?
Sure, let's roll.
she's been rocking, ready to go all day.
So patient.
Thanks for coming, Stacy.
Thank you, guys.
So wastewater, right? Okay. So another question for gas and oil. It actually went down. It didn't even stay the same. So are you comfortable with that 22?
The reason I dropped it
Uh-huh.
was the amount of money that was left over from last year.
Uh huh.
Okay, and I was trying to actually budget, and so I moved. You probably noticed I did move some money around, took some places, put some other places due to what I want to get done this year. Fuel, we just didn't use all of that was budgeted last
okay.
year, so that's why I did that.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
And you
If you
think
guys
with
feel we should put it back up, I'm fine with that. I was just.
No, I appreciate.
Yeah, and
mention-
I told them when we very first started this, we were trying to be very fiscally
Yeah.
responsible this year, so you weren't here for that part.
and on the water side of the discussion, we had a desire to increase that
Okay.
that gas and oil line, just knowing not what the
Exactly.
world economy is going to do to us, over the next 18 months. Obviously, we didn't predict that fuel
Nobody
costs
did.
were going to be where they are today. So there was some appetite earlier to increase the gas and oil line on the water side of the fence.
You
Is
want to
that-
put it back to 30?
Is that something
Well, they
that,
justified that they were like at the numbers that they used.
on the water side?
Right.
Right.
But you're saying that you didn't even use. You're not even.
Well, we were,
You didn't even use the.
Over 14,000.
yeah, over 14,000 is why I dropped it.
But those values were also set 15, 18
Sure.
months ago too. So
With the prices of fuel low,
I-
yes.
I think in that future look of what gas and oil prices could be in the next 18 months, I would rather you have the cushion than not.
Okay, that's fantastic.
We're moving it back to 30?
If I might make Councilman Harjo point, might make a suggestion, trying to be conservative and 25. I know you still had some overage from last time. We're trying to give you some cushion for it. I mean, just trying to see what kind of numbers you're thinking.
25.
We could go up to 25 if you guys allow it. That'd be fantastic too.
That might be a good middle ground in that. I just want to make sure that they've got the cushion, but if we can go up without
Right.
I
going
don't
up
have the
extravagant.
staff that the water department has.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
So
And much like with Dave, we're gonna get her a bicycle. So.
I need a bicycle.
If I say electric
No
scooter, that's
electric,
okay
no.
in the wastewater department.
Don't do
right?
electric, no electric.
Do we, Councilman Sanders stepped out. You good with 25?
I'm good with
Yeah,
25.
he snooze, he loses on his input. Just kidding. On 8575 for your DEQ loan payoff of over 1.3 million there. Is that going to be coming from capital reserve or where's that coming
Yeah,
from?
it's the reserve, just like with water. We're gonna pay them off the same.
So that'd be coming from capital reserve. Okay. And then if you look at 9625 where it says grant match DOD community 500,000, that's not being reflected on your revenue sheet.
DOD.
Not the 500,000. The 4.5 million is the
Uh-oh.
grant.
I'm not
500
looking at that one. At 9625.
DOD,
It's the match.
That's the match cash.
We just approved that on.
yeah,
In that grant sheet from the last meeting, there's a
Oh,
match of
so
500,000.
wouldn't be in our,
No.
because it was this fiscal year.
Correct.
Well,
Yeah.
it'll be next, you don't get that. That's your match. You don't get to put it on the revenue side. You're expending that.
Okay.
That's the question of, could we do in-kind work? And the answer was no,
Mhm.
you have to pay cash.
Right, no, I know.
yeah, from the day first day.
I just don't know how you guys always chart it, that's all. Okay.
And this one, because that grant, we're likely not going to get notification until after the roll of the fiscal year. We have to budget for that expenditure for next year's.
And can you speak on cell 10, please? So how much is cell 10 gonna cost?
The quote that we got, we kind of like did some talking to some people. We got a quote close to around 5 mil. It was, I think, 4.5 mil, somewhere into there. There was also some stuff that was not added to that, but I do believe we are going out to RFQ.
Right now.
Yeah. So to be able to get more quotes, to better know what's going on and how much it's gonna cost and so on. And we have to have, like I said, the engineers and all that stuff.
It was like around 10 or something.
Well, this goes back to the council meeting that we had when Councilman Brennan asked me that question. So the original quote, based on the design, had us raising all of the walls for the lagoon.
Uh-huh.
And then it had us upsizing the output pipes from the chlorine building, had us doing an increased size contact chamber. So there was a lot of things that were in that increased the prices.
Uh-huh.
So what we're looking at is we're looking at going back, staying at the level of the walls. Have 3, so we would only have to add 1 wall. Paying a company to come in and do the liner for us, we would do all our own inspections. We would not upsize the pipe because there's no volume increase, so we don't need the upsize in pipe at this rate. And then we wouldn't have to upsize the contact chamber. So by eliminating all of those things,
You brought it down
we're trying to,
half the
yeah,
amount.
we're trying to bring
Wow.
it down.
Yeah.
We understand the need for it,
Okay.
and we're trying everything we can. I promise we are, to try and get us to yes on
Oh,
this.
thank you.
So-
That's clear. Yeah. I was
Making it more simple.
Keeps
Right.
us-
Making it
well,
more simple, less extravagant, but it will work.
keeps us from having to go out for a loan.
That ideally would be paid out of your availability on June page.
Oh, okay.
Councilman Moore, jump in on.
I'm done.
Glad to hear. I think for me, it's one of those, I know with Keller, we still had the wastewater treatment task order out. I'm glad to hear that at least the grant, we're moving forward with the Cell Lagoon 10. I think we spent quite a bunch of money in task orders and that I think it's one of those that it might be, it's ready to pull. So as for clarification, we do not get this grant. We still, is the recommendation still moving forward for that and
Our
using
desire,
the
yes.
availabilities?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so this isn't we didn't get the grant, like,
Our desire is to move forward.
Yeah.
okay. Okay,
This-
I know we didn't get the grant last time, twice, and it didn't happen, so I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page, and then the public is knowing that we're moving forward with it's on there, so.
That at this significantly reduced project cost, that it's within striking distance of cash on hand, which is wonderful.
And Chris, you were saying we're doing our own inspections?
So the inspections for during construction. So we'll work with, there'll be basically 2 contractors that will be involved. There'll be a dirt moving contractor and then a liner contractor.
Okay.
And as we go through that process, any of the inspections on like pipe connection and stuff, we can do those inspections ourselves. And then the DEQ, when they step in, they have their own inspection criteria, but there's no cost associated with those. So that's the intention.
But I want to make sure we're not using city staff to do any
No.
work.
There is no, we're not gonna have a bulldozer out there. We're not gonna have a shovel out there. We will be walking, we will be doing the project management piece of it is essentially what it boils down to.
I'm just curious because, like I said, I'm worried about liability and
Understand.
I'd rather
Understand.
rather that be on the contractors if something, you know.
I don't,
There's
and
your
we,
grant.
if we were to try and do this on our own, we don't have the equipment.
And there's your,
We would have
like,
to
so between
be in the
cash
market of
carryover.
leasing a lot of really big equipment.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, we're not there.
This isn't Railroad Park.
No,
right?
this is large.
that, and
So,
there's,
So,
there's
And I'll,
okay.
funds
and I'll
that
let the
Ian
council know really quick too, is
put in
we ran out of water last year for the farmer.
in
And so this year,
contingency.
hence again, he might run out of water. And we've also had other discussions with other farmers of them quintessentially paying to hook up to our system and run it to a different farm. So for we're gonna see how it goes this year, and then we're gonna pipe burst, was it College Park, to keep that
yeah, we're gonna do
200,000 gallons of water out of the sewer lagoon. So we're just gonna keep doing
Yeah.
less, even though we have more hookups. Seems like we have less water.
we are seeing less intake into the lagoon. Project that we do, the mayor alluded to the one in College Park. So we don't have a way of telling you the exact gallon number that's going into College Park, but we know that we have a massive filtration problem in there. So if we can get in there and fix the lines, it's what, an eighth of a mile worth of lines. It's super short. We're estimating 200,000 gallons a day.
That's similar to what we did with the stormwater.
Exactly what we
Yeah.
did with
Fifth.
stormwater intakes. Yeah, we learned a huge lesson from that, and we're going to keep moving forward with it. So, and-
Hence probably the reason why we're running out of water for the farm.
yeah, yeah. And we do have some second and third order effects that we anticipate to come out of that, because on College Park we have a lift station, and it runs continually. So we anticipate our utilities will drop as well,
on there.
because
Yep.
we won't be pumping as much. So.
Gotcha.
And last but not least, council, we will probably try to do Cell Lagoon 5 and 6 and line that in the next couple of years
Yes.
when
So-
it gets closer to the DEQ requirement for testing.
So far, they all pass. Everything passes, but we know at some point in time there's a failure point coming.
Are we back up for testing on
What's
the
that?
leach effect? Isn't that
The seepage.
the seepage?
Yeah,
Excuse me,
we do.
28,
seepage testing.
29,
29.
29.
And we want to make sure that our goal is to not even have to worry about it, because it has a brand new liner.
Right.
So,
Oh, that's great. Like I said, I think it's glad if we don't get this grant, we are still moving forward just
That's the
because
plan.
we've spent, I know the topic about wastewater treatment plant, but like to see more of, kind of like our parks, a 5, 10, and 20-year plan. So, okay.
When will we know if we get that grant?
October.
October.
Yeah, that's
Um,
late September, early October, something like that.
So in availability funds, revenue, it's 3.7. That's not enough to cover the 4.5 or 5, whatever it'll be. Would we pull from contingency then, or to cover the?
We have availability and
So
If
we-
you look up above that on the far right, it says current report balance. That's the treasurer's report. You have 3.9 million in there currently sitting in cash. Over the next 16 months, at that time, their projected revenue was over 1 million. So if you add those two together, you have 4.9 available.
So,
I don't
On the
have that.
that last page, far right.
yep, I have right here. This just says based on Bill 250 carryovers.
Oh.
3.7.
Well, I'll just let you guys have this sheet and you can pass it down.
We have about 20 versions of sheets.
so hopefully it comes under 4 million. It's my
And that'd be-
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, your perfect.
Well, and
I'm gonna put it.
there are a couple things that we have learned working with the contractors we're speaking with. So some of the things, at least riprap above the water line, and that's not a requirement. So we're gonna try and trim some more of that off and make it as financially, the right word. We want to make it as cheap as possible.
Yeah,
I don't
there
like
you
using the
go.
word
Let's
cheap.
just-
Sharpening the pencil.
Thank
Yes.
you. I don't like the word cheap. So,
So
wanna make
I
it
guess
right.
the
Less
ask
cost.
as well is if we don't get the grant, and obviously we wouldn't pay off the debt, but we
Yeah.
want to make sure that that still goes forward.
We balance one to the other is what we.
BA-435.
All right, anything else for,
Guys may have covered this in my brief absence. Give.
Oil and gas.
Oil and gas.
In the 9900 line. There's a note here about a utility payment kiosk outdoor.
Oh, yeah. So that was something that was brought to us by the City Hall staff. There is a memo that's in the folder that covers the kiosk. What our intentions with the kiosk is that we can place it most likely here at City Hall, and it would be outside. It would allow 24 access and availability for people to pay not just their water bill, but really any.
Eventually could grow. Yeah, it's very common in other agencies, specifically in like courthouses, to pay fines and different things. But the convenience for a utility customer to pay after hours, it allows them to do that at the terminal. Additionally, like when we issue water shutoff day, right now there's a lot of trust that the person went online and made a payment when our technicians are out in the field turning water on after hours. And in this case, we could have the request of them to come to the terminal out front after hours, make a payment, and have proof of receipt in hand to then have their services reconnected. So.
Tiffany, can I ask, is that, oh, I'm so sorry, Councilman.
In looking at this, I notice a initial cost of $30,000 and $4,000 a year in essentially a subscription, and our software support that 24/7. Split it 3 ways. Aren't we looking at $12,000 per department? How are you going to split that $4,000 annually? To the department.
So it would be split the 3 ways.
Okay, so it's not just 10,000; it's 10,000 plus whatever the split is. Works out to be. You got the cost, and then you got the 4,000 per year. So the initial cost is actually 34,000 total.
Correct.
And the terminal can be placed anywhere, is what the gentleman said. It just needs a power source. So it doesn't have to necessarily be sat down here in City Hall. It could be placed anywhere you all find valuable. It just, he recommended the one he showed me, they have them drive through as well. So it doesn't have to be where someone gets out of the vehicle. Yep. Just considering our sun and the heat, he recommended that we put a shelter over it if it isn't under like our awning, just because the screen, the light and sunlight would eventually damage the screen. So
Like Redbox.
Yeah.
so
That's what we did at the water department at the bulk water station. We put a surround around it, and it works really well.
so that was his only suggestion. You need power and then potentially the coverage over the building, over the units.
That you're gonna have to, sorry, ask if you're done. Just had a quick question on the kiosk. For the merchandise, the fee discussed yesterday, is that gonna be part of that kiosk or anything?
Yeah, ultimately the consumer would have, if we proceed with that, it would be on the consumer as well.
The 4250 line.
And I did, on that note, I did hear back from legal because it would be a new kind of structure. It would require a public hearing.
It's reasonable.
Hey,
I think
Chris.
that's all we've got.
Stacy, can you, on the, just for clarification, so you have under that 99100, new 1-ton truck, but then you have parentheses, 2 trucks, tractor, and side by side. So those are all going to auction then?
I wanted to try and offset some of the cost for that truck.
Yeah. We have not only those, there are other vehicles
Yes.
throughout the entire city. And we want to auction them.
Okay.
Start using that for, we've been talking about trying to do an auction on site. Old police cars, that kind of stuff. These are what wastewater has.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to ask.
Yeah, and that truck, we don't have a truck that's capable of pulling some of our larger equipment, so that's why we want it.
That's all I've got.
Thanks,
All right.
Stacy.
It's the last, oh, streets.
Yeah. Gene and Kane.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, guys.
Too.
So you get 2 for 1 on this one. So I know that the mayor had mentioned that Mr. Palmer, the legacy Mr. Palmer is retiring next Tuesday. We were lucky enough to have somebody in-house that we were able to step up into the supervisor position. Kane is graciously taken that, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Congrats,
So
Kane.
it's nice to be able to have the continuity.
Yeah.
We'll have no drop in anything. So
Yeah.
Good.
Kane's a rock star.
So looking at 9,200 for like water and wastewater, the capital reserve number carried over, but this one is left blank. Can you explain?
I
It's
got
on your worksheet.
mine over there.
It's on this worksheet. So the carryover
Oh, we
street
were still calculating that.
oiling is 1.2 million.
Yeah,
It's
we
on
were
this
still
one.
getting
This cash carryover. I have that.
This one.
we were still working
Is
on
it
that.
this
when
one?
we did
Yeah,
these.
we're still working on it. And
So-
that's kind of a number that will change because when we finish the June bill run, then I'll go in and update everything and then I'll double check like, hey, were you guys able to get your chip sealing done? Where are you at with your street project? So if Chris is like, this is the cost and maybe we could get a little bit back, then that number could go up, or this is the cost and we're gonna need more, so it could go down.
So it's the 1.2?
Yep.
Okay. So with that reserve, do you have plans?
So we do have plans. As I mentioned in the council meeting the other night, still this year, we're obviously going out for the RFQ right now. It should be in the paper next Wednesday for the 10th Street project that
Oh,
I
that's right,
brought
yeah.
previously. We're also looking at 19th Street. If you remember a few months back, there was a gentleman that came in and was talking about that there was an area into an RV park. We discovered at that point in time we own it, so we want to pave that. There's a project over off South Fifth that we want to pave, and then after the council meeting the other night, when the lady came and talked to us about Stafford over here, we spent the morning out there. We cleaned all the lines, but we've identified that there's some sinking pavement over there, and there's a couple of spots where we know now that the curb and gutter are taller than the inlet, so we're not draining. So we're going to rebuild that intersection, and we're going to try and fix a lot of that road in there as well this year. So those are the things that we're moving forward with this year. Next year, we anticipate that we will be able to go forward with the, I'm going to say the right word, Airbase Road and Haskett widening that is on our CIP. We're going to have to do some tree removal. We're going to have to basically take a above ground canal and make it an in-ground canal, and then we'll be able to open it up. And in anticipation of being able to move forward, put a light in that intersection, hopefully. We've already broached that with ITD. They are considering it. They haven't given me a yes or no, but we're really, we're excited about the fact that we got the LTAC grant for the Hawk out here on 14th, and as soon as that is executed, we're going to go back to them and say, hey, now that we did this, we would like to do this. So we do have a lot of things that we're working on. We also know, based on the master transportation plan, we know that we have a series of roads out here that we do need to improve. South Fifth is a great example. So that's kind of the direction that we want to go over the next couple of years. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
No, thank you. And I took note of those. Yes, thank you. I have a question on revenue, but I'm sure the other council might have questions before we go there.
I do have one. Some of the work that's around the sinking pavement over here. Do you anticipate that being a similar situation with the American Legion and 2nd Street intersection that you and I talked about before? That has kind of a similar issue where the trees of the neighborhood and everything like clog that drain system. I mean, it seems like it's essentially two instances of the same thing, like a block apart.
That's why, if you noticed, we had our back truck.
Oh yeah, I saw Billy and everybody out here this morning.
We're seeing that all over the city.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of things. I don't know if I know you weren't on the budget last year, but last year we were able to budget to buy a product called Rudex because that is such a large problem, and we're Rudexing a lot of our sewer systems. and finding that they're bad. So, but the root X eliminates the roots completely, and it doesn't allow them to regrow because it lines them. So, yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
Long answer to say yes.
Thank you.
Chris, on the streets, you brought up about the Airbase Road and the Hasket. I'm just kind of curious on that. So it sounds you're in discussions with ITD still?
We have broached the subject with them. We have not received a yes or no. Our request was whether or not we could put a light that close based on the proximity to the light that we have at the corner of Fifth.
Right.
So, and you know Vince, I'm sure. Vince is working on that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I know when, was that last year on DIFAC, when we had Wendy during the meeting,
Yep.
they were basically like,
That,
gotta get a waiver.
that is changing. And I'm sure every time there's a new leadership at ITD, we get some different, they're more open to that. We didn't anticipate that we would get the Hawk,
Mhm.
and they're in talks about upgrading that to the light as well.
Yeah, I know they've talked about that with some, sounds like there's some concern, they want traffic studies and everything that they want, so I didn't know what the status of that as well, especially since if we've been awarded with LTAC, but
Mhm.
if ITD is not gonna, necessarily sign off on it, if they're gonna be a Hawk or if they're gonna want a full intersection light there,
We
so,
haven't got that yet.
so we haven't gotten that far yet.
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We haven't got that answer
Chris,
yet.
do you think it'd be any benefit if the mayor and council wrote a letter asking them to perhaps come and have this discussion with all
absolutely.
of us? Like,
Yeah.
that way, you're not having to,
Without that, I can certainly call and ask them.
that way you're not having to take that on single-handedly in that sense. Not that you're not happy to, right? But like, to have an honest conversation with ITD representation, like sitting here while we can all kind of put our heads together and look at the master transportation plan and what it calls out for, it might be a benefit.
I agree, and then we met with ITD last week,
Mhm.
and that was one of the things that they did throughout, is they're willing to come and speak to councils and
Awesome.
have those discussions, so absolutely.
It's good to hear.
Councilman Harjo, I'm glad you brought that up, because I would very much like that. I know we have those two intersections. We also have now City View Drive.
We've had City View Drive.
Gas station is going in.
Mhm. Yeah.
That was kind of passed up on that, so now we've got a situation there that we have to figure out, especially since we're collecting impact fees. So, yeah, I think it would be great to have ITD come and speak directly to them so we can figure out what we're doing with those intersections and that, so.
Yeah.
You guys good with the expenses?
Expenses I'm okay with. I have
Yeah.
a question on revenue.
Go ahead.
I get pretty simple-minded sometimes, so bear with me. 023353000. The highway users' revenues. I know they tend to fluctuate, but I'm just double checking the projection. I mean, I know I'm passing more drivers and more folks are passing me left and right. So what's the source of that funding and what are we anticipating there?
AIC manual came from the state. That's for this, that's the number. I would challenge
One
you
of
to
those,
find
we'll,
it.
we'll get something, but
It's in the back of that book and it's teeny tiny. I actually had to have Sue help me read it and we had our phone over it.
Yeah, it's like tiny, tiny.
It's in the back of the book.
I can pull it up here in a sec if you want to
Oh,
see it.
you know what? I have that book. I was like, oh, Sue, help me read this.
Revenue share.
But that's where it's
Share.
While you're looking that up, can I just ask a really quick question? Refunds and reimbursement, how does that work with streets?
Well, they have the same problem as the Parks Department because everybody hits the pedestrian lights or the street signs or the bollards, and then they're expending it out of their expenditure line. And if we recoup a restitution, which usually takes months because it goes through court and then through insurance companies, their insurance claim then comes in on it.
We do that quite regularly.
Yeah.
I just see that number fluctuate so much, I was just curious, how did that come in? How does that come in? Because, yeah.
Too big.
We
When you're at
replaced.
50, 24, then 11.
And so every one of those
Oh, all
pedestrian
those.
lights you put in, like, they're, what, $10,000,
This is the
$8,000?
same one.
Yeah.
But what year are you in? Hold on.
Yeah.
Go back to the top.
That's just the light itself, and by the time we get
Okay,
Twice.
26. Go that way.
if we take and make it 2, then it's about 12, 13,
Projected
14,000.
total.
That's not the.
Hawking parts off one to put in another.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
that quite regularly.
Like when one gets hit, that's what I'm saying. Like, and typically it's a commercial driver. So then that commercial driver's company then has to fight, and insurances are in between, and
Go
on
to
I'm in between that,
141
and it's
maybe?
6 months before
It's
anything's
Mountain
settled,
Home.
and
Gotcha.
so that's how that kind of works. But the more you put out in the public, the more get hit, right? if that makes sense. So that
Here.
I'd love to say that it keeps reducing, but it
On the
doesn't.
right side?
Oh.
Go down?
It's an interesting.
Yeah, it's that one.
Most of those
This
down here
colored
at
one?
American
Okay.
Legion and the
Uh,
highway.
let's see.
Because
Oh, the white one,
right
all right.
and the 18-wheeler got himself stuck there the other day. Yeah.
Up
That's a
Murphy
high.
took out the
Yep.
signal.
Mhm.
Matches.
A busted.
At Norco, they took one out.
It's tiny.
Tiny. I couldn't do that thing he's doing.
Like
Yeah,
I
they got really
had
good
to
at
scroll
piecing
in on
parts off. So when one gets damaged, the guys take it back to shop, and then we're able usually to kind of piecemeal and get us back up and operational, because it takes a while to get a new one in.
Can't read it.
And we used to call those hanger queens back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a
Same
little bit of a
concept.
challenge they have now. I mean, we've been piecemealing them together, but our electronics are changing as fast as everything, so some of that stuff don't mix and match. Aluminum does, but not internal parts.
Depends on how hard you hit it.
If you hit it hard.
Thank you.
I'm good.
So I wanted to show you guys that AIC handbook. This is, when you download it, it's on page 141, but this describes all the highway distribution account allocations for the state and what those general fund and FY 27 grand totals are. It's impossibly small text at times, but we'll put it at the uppermost line and scroll across here, but you'll see that 1,044,958 is,
And
it matches our number.
it really fluctuates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when it's left to the discretion of the state, flip a coin.
Wow.
That's why I'm like, if that's the number they're giving me, I don't change it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, would I like to say 1.3?
Or 1.6?
Yeah, but
Almost
I'm
like
not,
that.
yeah, I just go with what they give me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can we get estimated date on income? I know early this
As
year
soon as I
we
speak to them, absolutely.
had all with Keller trying to get that, figure out a date and that, so I think it'd be
As
best to
soon
try
as I
and.
speak to them, absolutely.
Last thing I just have. Curious, so I know on the streets division website, we have project list, what we're doing for seal coating to rehab and everything. Has there been any talks, and that went up to FY 25, are there any talks of updating a new one to kind of give a 10-year outlook of what we're gonna be doing? And
Certainly can. Yeah, happy to do that.
I think it'd be great just for the public, just so
Happy
they
to do
know. and then they can
Absolutely.
see, oh, yep, this year we did this, and the next year we did that, similar to kind of what I feel like this theme, if I may not speak for the council, but the theme of this budget session is the 5, 10, 20-year plans, parks, all those. So I think it would be really great to get this updated and, yeah, just for those rehab chip sealing. When did we last chip seal a street?
It's probably been 6, 7 years, I think. Somewhere in there. Well, we've been fog sealing still. I mean, we do have fog seal projects for the year too. as
And we
well,
do
but
have fog seals, I say that for this year.
Has it been primarily fog, or I've seen crack sealing a little bit?
Mostly fog, yeah. The chip sealing, I tried it last year. We tried to hook onto the project they had going on Airbase Road. I thought, wow, I'll be able to get them actually here. That didn't pan out. Spent a lot of nights talking with them and everything, but reality is, once they get hooked into those bigger projects, and I mean, I look at all the ones from all over. they tend to like the 20-mile-long project, the 60-mile-long project, and for some reason in the construction world, it seems like people are backing out of, they're growing those one agencies. They're like throwing all their, and the ones that were doing it before, like as a part-time thing, are just giving that work away to the other ones. That makes any sense?
Yeah.
So ITD kind of, a lot of those bigger agencies eat them up. So, but the opportunity was there to do a mile right next to their 20 miles, and
Didn't fall.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious because, like I said, I was trying to remember
Well,
last time, and I was like,
I'm
it's been a while.
retiring, so I might start a business.
There you go.
One that they don't seem to. I know.
idea.
No, yeah.
Do
There's
that.
a lot of failures in that kind of system.
Do that, start that business. Anything else for streets?
I think you guys are good.
Congrats, and
Thank you guys. I appreciate it, and I
Yeah.
appreciate, just even having the opportunity to do this kind of a job. So.
Yeah.
Gene?
You guys were good with street lighting.
Yeah, that one's.
Yeah.
So council, we give quick recap of what we want to talk on Monday, and then what time is it in the afternoon? Is it in the morning? What?
Oh gosh.
I know there's 4 things you want to talk about, right? 4 departments.
There were.
Minus the airport now.
Economic developer,
That's right.
Yeah, economic development was one of them.
parks, facilities, study.
Master
Yeah.
facilities.
Yeah. We got, we need hate for, community development about charging more to cover the fee structure for P and Z DIFAC.
That's kind of
That
Brenda.
was discussed. The
But-
fee structure has to come back in a city
Oh,
council
so
meeting
don't-
with.
so that
the-
one's-
Yeah, that's
Oh, gotcha, okay. Does police salary need to come back, I think, right? Cause I think Decker brought that up.
I do have one question.
the
though.
shift differential.
I mean, I think it's figure out how I want to ask it, but I'll ask it this way. When we gave up, this is before my time, so it's trying to wrap my head around it. When we gave up, or we did not fill that position, keep it on the books?
Oh, we took it and put it into,
They kept
Chief.
going.
put it into the pay bumps for the certs,
Okay.
right?
So
And retention.
I want,
And yeah, retention.
I would like to be comfortable and be somewhat, by whatever means available, assured that in losing that position, we have not degraded level of service, that being a agency that is one of the ones we can use to set impact fees. Part of that expectation is there's a level of service when you establish that. I want to double check and make sure that as a long-term thing, we've not turned back our level of service or requirements which we are charging impact fees currently.
So
I think Chief Thompson spoke on, actually, we were trying to get him to do something with the impact fees, and at that time, Phil, there was a briefing that everyone came in and spoke to the
Mhm.
council. I think it was the DIFAC,
it was the
yeah.
DIFAC.
He came in and spoke to them, and he was completely comfortable with not doing anything with the impact fees.
about the level of service.
Well, that, whether or not he does them, to me, is a secondary question. When we have a comprehensive plan that it's somewhere in its calculation includes so many officers per capita or by whatever measure was used. We go back in and remove part of that product, are we still within that groove? It's like at least so many square feet of parks or whatever.
It's per thousand,
So
right? One officer
it
per
may
thousand.
want to go back and take a second look.
Yeah, you weren't in there, you were short. If you looked at the population, correct?
I remember recalling it. I believe he was saying we were at like 1.6, 1.7.
I think it's like 1.73 or something was his number.
Close to that 2 point, that 2 officers per thousand, kind of. That's why it was his recommendation with the impact fees for the police that we were.
Okay, I would be interested to hear the assessment of the new chief when he comes in and gets a chance to take a look. And with the growth we are projecting, 250 new homes, do we need to perhaps be aware that might need a second look? Whether that's a lieutenant, whether it's a sergeant, whether it's I just see a body coming out of the force structure.
So
625 potential new citizens,
Amy,
right?
could we talk to you for a second?
What did I say, 650
Yes,
homes?
ma'am.
What did we-
Sorry.
250 homes?
It's the
Yeah,
other
we're
80 we're
projecting
talking to in the room.
That's
So
in our revenue
I'm playing a
projections.
movie in my
Okay, so
head.
So just-
625 more residents.
Around
Average a home, about 2.5.
Right.
around that topic of the future look at staffing. So we've got like our current staff salary. Obviously, we'll have a new chief coming in under the current schema. Chief Larson, AC Dudley are on this kind of categorized as lieutenants, but acting as chief and assistant chief, right? The future goal at the top end. Chief Larson's going to be retiring in a number of short years here. AC Dudley will then move up one rank. At the moment, we've got those 4 open positions down the roster as 11 certified officers. To ask, I think the question that we're kind of getting at here is our active hiring, projected for either the current year or next year to.
We're continuously trying to hire. That's part of, we have not tapped into impact fees for hiring because we haven't even been able to fill the current positions that we have. And with impact fees, it has to be additional. So when we did restructure, we used that money to not only go to the post certifications and the training or the instructor certification fee, but we also did that $1.63 or whatever per hour per officer to help with retention on the current staffing. And it didn't impact operational capabilities for the community because we got rid of an administrative position. Not that our lieutenants are not important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But we kept the boots on the ground, and that was important to us to try to get a hold, keep everyone here.
And you guys have been incredibly efficient under the current.
This week
Model.
we tested 2 more individuals. They failed their written exams again. They'll come back in 2 weeks, take it again. They passed their PT with flying colors. So we just, with everyone using computers and phones nowadays, nobody writes and spells. So we need teachers to start teaching that again.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
Well, thank you for that context.
Did that
I just figured since you were
answer your
here, I
question?
might pick your brain on this aspect real quick.
Council, Monday, morning or afternoon?
I'm available either way.
Yeah, same.
Might want to do morning,
Just in case.
Yeah, in case it drags out.
There's more, I think that was on our list, so we need to figure out, this is just within us, what we're gonna do with the Idaho Power money. We also need to figure out civic groups, all of them. And then, your golf, we need to figure out what we're gonna do with golf with meetings and dues, right?
I thought you gave that to him.
No, we didn't know, because he needs to come back to us and tell, because that was his request.
With Chris regarding.
That was your request, right, for the meetings and
Well,
dues to see, to
More
itemize,
money
like,
for schools and dues? Is it the 5 or 7? When,
It was a 5,500.
just to.
They were okay with the
understand.
5,000, but if we're gonna extend it to 8,000, which was thrown out there,
Right.
then it needs to be justified.
yeah. And then,
And the Idaho Power money is allocated in carryover.
It's in carryover. It kind of dispersed
okay,
amongst this
okay,
budget anyhow.
okay, sorry, I don't know. Airport, we need to still make our decision on if we're gonna go with a city employee on that.
it's a no-go. He said,
Didn't want to do his financials.
so I wanted him to bring his financials to show you guys,
Curtis
but
said
then
he won't.
he was like, nah, I don't feel comfortable having the ethos or ether, all know that. So he said, don't worry about it. Just keep it as contract.
Make that adjustment to
Oh.
airport.
Okay,
We'll flip that around.
and then, water, first for well 18 to get started. Yeah, I think that's what we asked, like, I think I asked that of Chris, does the numbers look like to get well 18 went off the ground? Because it wasn't in our budget book. We didn't have well 18 and we didn't have storage tank number 5.
But he spoke on it when he was here. Yes.
So,
Sure.
can I, sorry, I interrupted. Can I get your notes emailed to me?
Yeah.
So that I can ensure that those are addressed Monday to stay on track.
And
Scott's punch list.
I have that change log. I'm gonna email it to everybody. I was waiting till we were
Nice.
done with this part, but there's one that I would like to touch on. But Monday's fine. Um, in the city hall budget, there's a line for tree and plant replacement. I'd like to talk to council and some staff about that.
What is it?
Tree and plant replacement
Oh,
and,
yes.
and weed abatement line
On what?
on Monday. It's under city hall.
Oh.
It's just categorized just after, physically on the list, just after the civic group. So I just want to make sure that I can circle back to that when we get to civic groups too.
So the lines that were changed, I'm gonna put on the sheet, I'll change them into new numbers and then I'll do the yellow cell. And then I'm just gonna email them. I'm not reprinting everything. You guys good with that?
Or we could dump them in the shared
Yeah, I'll
drive.
give it to Tiffany. She can dump it.
When we do that, when we do that,
It's like, oh.
when we do that latest updated file, can we put a date on the end of the file name? Like as some
Oh,
revision,
sure.
revision
Like I got-
control, because
Like a-
we've got like 4 electronic copies with the same exact title right now.
Ow.
So I think the water, if I understood, and Amy, I'm sorry, you're
Oh,
here,
you're
and I
fine.
have a question for police and, but for the water, correct me if I'm wrong, the discussion kind of was leaning towards storage to kind of help us get to well number 18. Is
If we
that
had our druthers, we'd rather do the storage
right?
and then
Mhm.
the well, I mean, we'll go out and still do the due diligence of locating a spot for well 18, all that, but our druthers would rather the storage tank.
Okay.
The storage gives you more EDUs.
Well, and I asked too for numbers on that, like if he, because it sounds complicated, right? Like, does it need to be a phased approach, and like, how much do you want for the first to even just go out and look, get it well 18 started? Maybe we can still do that this budget, right? So,
The current one. This one right now.
Now the
No, in
27,
26.
in 27.
26, 27. We're in
Oh,
25,
26, yeah.
26.
Okay. Anything else, council?
Mayor,
So-
if I'm- just since Amy's here, sorry. Amy, so I had a
Go.
question.
I know mine.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. Amy, I just had a question, just for, because you came with so many notes and I felt bad that you didn't have really any much questions.
still has those notes right.
I know, that's why I'm like, I've got to
Ride or
ask now.
die.
Under the police, I know we briefly talked about it. The line 99-20, the payoff on the police station. Just kind of curious on, because we didn't know when we were talking to streets, you know, water, wastewater, what we were looking at for the projects and essentially that, you know, what the cost could be on those. With this, I know we're saving 50, I think it was 50-some thousand dollars in interest if we pay off on that.
Can I, not to change your thought, the last time we got debt payoffs was in February. So we're basing those numbers off of February numbers. Okay, so I just want to ensure everyone knows that timeline.
Gotcha.
I don't want to keep bugging DEQ and all of our debt people if we're not going to make this. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be that person.
Gotcha.
So
Sounds good. I'm just curious. It can help me kind of not understand, but if we had to, all of our cash carryover, all the wastewater availability funds, all these things, if we needed to compile all those, would it be, I guess, detrimental if we didn't pay that off right then and there? I'm curious what the interest rate on the loan is, just to see, but I know the savings on it, but I just kind of want to get your thoughts since you were here on that.
It was about 50.
Well, we recognize that paying off citywide debt is important to all departments. We also recognize there's only, you know, one pot of money, so there's limited funds. We put it in there just for your consideration so that if there was, for some reason, extra money, that was feasible, since it's, you know, finally reached an opportunity where it's under $1 million. You know, in the past, we've never had that opportunity without coming up with several million. If we don't pay it off, it's not going to impact the way we provide our police services. Our priorities obviously are staffing and fleet reliability and equipment and staffing, but I already said staffing, but we just wanted to present it to you for your consideration because it is a semi-attainable dollar amount at this point, and it would help clear up some of the city debt, but that's totally up to you guys and your purview. We just wanted to present it.
No, and I appreciate that. I know the vehicle, that was the big one. So I was just kind of curious about this. Again, we've heard from Public Works today, and it's just something I kind of wanted to pose if that's going to be, you know, detrimental to if that's something that doesn't go forward. So,
Completely understandable.
perfect. Thank you.
All right, anything else, council?
I need to know the time. 9 a.m.? Like, what are we doing again?
8?
No, we need to let staff come in and be able to land softly in the morning. Does 9 work for staff?
Yeah, that works for me. Like,
I have 9 to 4 blocked out anyway. So I thought it wasn't a full day or so. 9's fine.
I will get it created.
Say 9, because that's German. Yes.
I'm
Is
done.
that everything?